I ask my wife to watch every video I upload to my channel, so I can hear some constructive criticism. After the last video, she told me that technically it was fine, but it felt like a copy of every previous one. Meaning I start with a short intro, then move on to a slightly longer one, and after that I list players and stats and stats. Something needs to change. That doesn't mean you are about to see some over-the-top effects of a completely different kind of video, but I decided that this time there won't be a standard rookie ranking or an order based on statistics. In our home, we love Marvel movies and series, so I decided to assign each rookie I discuss to a character from the Marvel universe, using their traits to illustrate what the player has achieved and what their future might look like. I will start with a player who hasn't played and won't play this season, Nikola Topic, the 12th pick in the draft, who is out due to a torn ACL. To me, Topic is like Charles Xavier, aka Professor X. He can't play, just like Xavier can't walk. But his strengths, which we saw during his time in Europe, are his excellent reading of the game and understanding of it, just like the X-Men leader. Of course, we will be able to properly assess his basketball skills next season when he starts playing, but I wanted to give you an idea of how this video will look. Now let's move on to the players who have really played. The first one I'll discuss is Zachary Rissacher, the number 1 pick in 2024 draft. I was never a huge fan of his from the start. I predicted and still believe that he will be a slightly better version of Evan Fournier. Rissacher is a bit of a mystery to me. In Atlanta, Trae Young is the main guy, and Jalen Johnson is the co-leader when healthy. Rissacher is kind of quietly fading into the background behind them. He reminds me of Doctor Strange, a character who is mysterious and doesn't talk much. So far, Rissacher has been solid, but not spectacular. He has the potential for big things, but he still needs to build a stronger frame. Maybe then he will evolve from Strange into someone more powerful. Doctor Strange is one of my wife's favorite characters in the Marvel Universe, while my favorite one is Thor. And for the rookie equivalent of Thor, I chose the best first-year player, and in my opinion the clear candidate for the Rookie of the Year award, Stephen Castle. Like Thor, Castle is spectacular. He has incredible bounce, which he showed in the dunk contest. A hammer? It's necessary for all those power dunks, and Castle delivers them regularly. As I am recording this, he is averaging over 20 points per game in March alone. Sure, the Spurs aren't playing for anything anymore, but for most of the month he was coming off the bench behind De'Aaron Fox. I have no idea what would have to happen for him not to win Rookie of the Year. And if there is Thor, there has to be his adopted brother, Loki. Loki is a bit of a wild card, disappearing for long stretches, then returning as a villain who often worked against the fate of the world, only to later switch back to the good side. That's exactly how I feel about Quinton Post, the center of the Golden State Warriors. A second-round pick, Post didn't play for a long time due to injuries. The team waited for him, and when he finally got on the court, he turned out to be more than just useful. Right now, he looks like a lock for minutes at the center position. Compared to Kevon Looney or Trayce Jackson-Davis, he brings three-point shooting, which dramatically improves the Warriors' spacing, something they've rarely had from a big man. One of my favorite scenes in the Avengers is when Hulk smashes Loki into the ground like a rag doll. That kind of raw power is exactly what comes to mind when I think of Zach Edey from the Memphis Grizzlies. At 7 feet 4 and officially 304 pounds, he's a perfect match for Hulk. The only thing missing is the green color and maybe a bit more aggression. Right now, Edey looks like Hulk, but plays more like Bruce Banner. He doesn't seem like someone who will lead a team, but he is on a track to become a solid center who can rack up double-doubles once he learns to cut down on fouls. Staying in Memphis, let's shift our attention to Jalen Wells, who reminds me a lot of Yondu Udonta from Guardians of the Galaxy. Yondu had insane precision. One whistle and his arrow could take down entire groups of enemies. Similarly, when Wells gets the chance, he can knock down threes with surgical accuracy. Lately, Wells has been a bit fatigued, so his shooting has dipped, but he's still hitting 36% from beyond the arc, one of the best marks among rookies. No one expected much from him as a second round pick, yet here he is, a locked-in starter for a top-tier team in the Western Conference. On top of that, he is also a surefire pick for the all-rookie first team. Just like Wells, Dalton Knecht of the Los Angeles Lakers is an elite shooter. Given that he plays for the Lakers, alongside LeBron James and Luka Doncic, I chose to compare him to Hawkeye. After all, Hawkeye is also a great marksman, always in the shadow of stars like Iron Man, Thor or Captain America. That perfectly fits Knecht, who remains in the background of the Lakers superstars. Knecht has stabilized his form. He had a brief dip after the trade deadline when he was momentarily a Charlotte Hornets player, but he quickly bounced back and got back on track, just like Hawkeye after the blip. Since I mentioned Iron Man, I also had to pick a player who represents him. That player is Jared McCain. Why? Tony Stark loved attention, thrived in the spotlight, and so does McCain, who enjoys showing off on TikTok. Iron Man also somewhat self-appointed himself as the leader of the Avengers, and McCain took advantage of injuries to Joel Embiid, Paul George and Tyrese Maxey to emerge as the leader of the 76ers. Of course, he didn't finish the season due to injuries, but during his time on the court he proved he was outstanding. From the beginning he reminded me of Jalen Brunson. He moves similarly but is more dynamic around the rim. I see star potential here. Iron Man's favorite was Spider-Man. Now, I haven't heard of Matas Buzelis being close friends with Jared McCain, but he fits the Spider-Man mold best. Buzelis might be the best shot-blocking big man in this draft class. Right now he leads the Chicago Bulls in blocks per game, even though he plays just over 70 minutes. His arms are long like a spider's, hence the comparison. Of course, Buzelis still struggles offensively. For a power forward, shooting just 43% from the field isn't good enough, and that's something that needs to improve. One of Spider-Man's enemies was Dr. Octopus. I don't see Keyshawn George as Buzelis' rival, though they do play against each other, but the Wizards forward reminds me of the villain because of his massive wingspan, which helps him disrupt opponents. Among rookies who have played at least 30 games this season, George leads in steals and his 1.8 stocks per game rank 5th among all first-year players. The Wizards know they have a future 3-and-D wing in him, someone who could lock down the small forward position for years. However, they need to work on his shooting. He is currently at just 37% from the field and 32% from free. But in today's NBA, the volume on threes matters, so there is plenty of optimism. One of George's teammates in Washington is Bob Carrington. After watching him in Summer League, I had him as my dark horse for Rookie of the Year contention. But just like Ultron, who promised to be something great but ultimately fell short, Carrington hasn't lived up to the expectation. He was supposed to have a guaranteed spot in the starting five, with Jordan Poole at shooting guard likely having another underwhelming season, opening the door for Carrington. Bob ranks second among rookies in assists, but since late January he has lost his grip on the starting lineup. He still gets starts occasionally when a key player is out, but inconsistently. I'm a bit disappointed because I expected much more from him. Since we are talking about point guards, the leader in assists among rookies is Isaiah Collier from the Utah Jazz. He reminds me of War Machine. Don't remember him? Well, the first Iron Man movie came out a long time ago, and of all the Marvel characters, this one isn't exactly the most recognizable. He is Tony Stark's buddy, played by Don Cheadle, and just like you might not remember War Machine, nobody watches Collier playing for the dreadful Utah Jazz. Sure, he leads all rookies in assists, but nobody cares because we don't even know who is scoring off his passes. A similar knockoff, but of Captain America, was Falcon, aka Sam Wilson. He is even the new Captain America now, though his last movie, to put it mildly, didn't exactly set the world on fire. My NBA equivalent? Tristan da Silva from the Orlando Magic. Da Silva, much like Sam Wilson at the beginning, is just a sidekick to Captain America, not even the most important one. But when Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner got injured, suddenly Da Silva had a few games where he was Orlando's best player. But that fame disappeared as quickly as the hype around the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. You turned it on, watched an episode, maybe even two, and turned it off. Just like Da Silva and the Magic. My favorite Marvel character who never got a movie but did get a series is Frank Castle, aka The Punisher, especially played by Jon Bernthal, who I could watch for hours because he's just that good. The Punisher is ruthless and vengeful, which reminds me of Devin Carter from the Sacramento Kings. He was sidelined just like Castle due to injuries. Then, when he tried to return, there were others taking his minutes. And then Sacramento went and added Zach LaVine, making things even harder for him. But Carter is fighting for his spot. Lately, he's been getting more and more chances to play. I just hope he doesn't take out everyone like the Punisher. Along with the Punisher, I've been watching other Defenders characters lately, especially the new season of Daredevil. Daredevil, aka Matt Murdock, is blind. And the first rookie that came to my mind when thinking about him was Ryan Dunn from the Phoenix Suns. Why? Because for 2 years in college, Dunn was practically blind when it came to three-point shooting. He attempted 51 threes and made just 12. In the NBA, he beat that number of makes by his 8th game and surpassed his total attempts by the 12th. Like he suddenly regained his vision or had his other senses sharpened like Murdock. On top of that, he is a great defender who protects his territory, just like Daredevil guarded Hell's Kitchen from Wilson Fisk. Since it's a bit hard to transition smoothly from one superhero comparison to another, I'll just say this. Daredevil's name starts with D, and he wears red, just like Deadpool. I love Deadpool, he's awesome, but he's also a walking disaster, leaving chaos and destruction wherever he goes. Kind of like the Charlotte Hornets, who have racked up losses just like Deadpool racks up body counts. One of their players, Tidjane Salon, fits that theme perfectly. Deadpool fires a ton of shots, and while Salon doesn't take quite as many, his accuracy is just as questionable. From close range he's shooting 32%. Let's say Wade Wilson hits these targets about as often. And from long range, he's below 29%. That fits Deadpool too. In Deadpool 2, our hero was accompanied by Colossus, a mutant capable of transforming his body into super durable steel. And when I look at Donovan Klingon, I get the feeling he actually could play that role. Big? Check. Strong? Check. Doesn't smile? Nope. 3 shared traits are enough. Unfortunately, Klingon isn't as durable as Colossus and often gets injured, though he has played over 56 games. And there's a fourth similarity. He stops opponents. Klingon averages 1.6 blocks per game, the most among rookies, and 3.2 per 36 minutes, which shows that we don't see him on the court very often, just like Colossus in Deadpool 2. That makes 5 similarities. Well done for me. In the same movie we also saw Juggernaut, the stepbrother of Charles Xavier. Juggernaut can survive without food, oxygen, or water. If Missy had a similar work environment this season. Except in his case, he was missing a point guard, a shooting guard, a small forward, and a power forward. On top of that, Juggernaut often bulldozes his opponents in battle. Missy may not be running through people, but among all rookies he has the most offensive rebounds, so you could say that this is his way of bulldozing defenders. I know, the further we go the harder these comparisons get, but bear with me for a little longer. I still have 7 more names on the list and I promise to speed things up. Maybe not as fast as one of my favorite scenes, where Quicksilver helps break Magneto out of prison. But just as he's the fastest character in Marvel, the fastest rookie is Rob Dillingham of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the similarities don't stop at speed. Both are very young and quite immature. Dillingham had a very brief moment in the spotlight this season, but is mostly being kept on a short leash, getting only scraps of playing time. If he is meant to eventually replace Mike Conley, he needs more minutes. I remember how, after the draft, everyone criticized the San Antonio Spurs for taking Castle and letting Dillingham go so easily. But now, they are ones getting the last laugh. Speaking of laughing, that brings me to Ghost Rider, who got his own movie with Nicolas Cage. Another rookie with a similar fiery streak on offense is Terrence Shannon Jr. from the Timberwolves. But just like Ghost Rider last appeared on screen in 2011 in a pretty mediocre outing, Shannon had his peak moment on February 27th, scoring a career-high 25 points, only for his minutes to drop and drop until he nearly disappeared from the rotation. Kind of like Ghost Rider on TV, though every now and then you might still catch it on some random channel on your cable. Another fire-related character was the Human Torch from Fantastic Four. My pick for this one? Ron Holland from the Detroit Pistons. Johnny Storm, as he was called, gained his powers after being exposed to radiation and literally became a Human Torch. Holland had a similar experience when he landed with Gillick Ignite, a name that would fit right into the Marvel universe. Holland is chaotic, dynamic, and energetic, just like the Human Torch. And if you've watched Detroit Pistons play, you know that watching Holland play is an adventure. A character who isn't particularly mature, but is incredibly strong, agile, and long-limbed? That's Groot. And the NBA player that fits this description? Kel'el Ware of the Miami Heat. Ware is still a basketball puppy compared to Bam Adebayo, but he's shown flashes of potential. Sometimes when he's on the court, it seems like he doesn't understand anything that's being said to him. Like he is still figuring things out and just responds with I am Groot! But Groot matured over time, growing into a strong, capable, well, not exactly a man, more like a being, and the same is happening with Ware. At the start of the season he wasn't playing at all. Now he is a regular part of the rotation, sometimes even starting. A full-fledged Guardian of the Galaxy, member of the Miami Heat rotation. Groot's buddy was Rocket, the little raccoon, at least that's what Thor called him. And here comes another smooth transition. Rocket? Rockets? Houston Rockets? Reed Sheppard. Yes, I'm very proud of this one. In all seriousness, Sheppard is probably the shortest of the key rookies from this draft, just like Rocket was always the smallest Marvel hero. Small, quick, but not a main character. Sheppard isn't one either. He is either out of the rotation, sent to the G League, or dealing with injuries. For the last two comparisons I have no clever way to connect them, so I'll just use draft order, and for Black Panther I'll go with Alex Sarr. For most of the season Sarr felt like Black Panther without his superpowers. Missing shots, lost on the court, constantly fouling. But lately he's been much better. It's like he's finally drunk that purple flower potion and started dominating. Of course that's quite an exaggeration for someone playing for the Washington Wizards, but as of this recording, Sarr is on an 8-game streak, averaging 18.8 points, while shooting 40% from free on over 6 attempts per game. A completely different player. And finally, let's once again check in the forgotten Utah Jazz. There's a rookie there, named Cody Williams, or so they say, and supposedly he's good. Kind of like the Mandarin from Iron Man 3. He was supposed to be a great villain for Tony Stark, but it turned out he was just an actor pretending to be a supervillain. That's a bit like Williams. He's trying to look as good as his brother, Jalen Williams, but the reality is what it is. Right now, he's nowhere near J-Dub, just like the Mandarin was nowhere near Iron Man. That's all for today. This turned out to be quite a bit of material, but I had a blast putting it together. Let me know in the comments what you think and which NBA rookies you would compare to Marvel characters. See you in the next episode. Bye!